So what was the big tactical issue on down in Orlando in your mind?
Well, I mean, maybe this gets us. I mean, are we ready for Katz's Corner?
Yeah, let's go Katz's Corner right now, since we're not going to, nitpick the game away, right?
Yeah. So I think this game, is a classic example of all the things that they're holding us back. So what I did was I did an analysis of every goal that we scored and every goal that we conceded. And this is, my I preface this by saying it's my own personal analysis, it's my own personal bias, et cetera, et cetera. So feel free to question what we're talking about, right? So first of all, things that are non-biased, right? So first of all, we have scored going into this game, we had scored 10 free kicks, right? We scored one this game. So that's 11 on the season. The closest other team in MLS has only scored 5. So we're now 5 or 6 goals better than any other MLS team scoring on free kicks. So that's Almada, amazing free kicks. Yeah. And it's corner kicks to the big 3, right? Yeah. Miles, Gigi,
Parata.
And Parata. And of course, even when we've gotten some headers from other people, like Gutman scored on a header off a corner, but we're dominant on corners. I mean, just dominant. The number of times we get a corner and we get something going towards the goal, it's almost all.
Yeah, it's been good set pieces this year.
So we've only given up 3 free kick goals. So that's +7, right? Yep. And now +8, right? Because we scored one and given whatever. So maybe Carmen can pull up our goal differential. Right. Okay. So if you look at the MLS table, you'll see our goal differential, and you come back to it. I'll keep talking for now. But
the goal differential is 4. Atlanta has 29 goals scored, 25 conceded.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Woo. Right. So all of our goal differential, everything and more, is all free kicks, right? And the thing about free kicks is credit to us, coaches are coaching well or whatever. Obviously, you have good players. You can't coach what Almada does. But none of that's tactical, really. Yeah. I mean, you might say the corner kick plays are tactical, but it's really not like tactical how you play. It's a set piece, it's a play, and it's players who can do that, right? So if you're talking about, if you take that away, right, and if you just say the average play, right? Because we're +7, right? Now we're +8, right? So if you take that away, we're -4. So again, maybe I'll ask Carmen to pull up the table, right? And go find out where -4 is in the table, right? It's not good. So right now, where are we? Okay, so we're in 5th place and we have a +4. Okay. Obviously, Charlotte's the anomaly at -5, right behind us, right? But if you go to -4, right? Most of the teams at -4 are, Chicago is at -3 at 12th, New York -3 at 11th, Red Bulls -3 at 13th, right? Toronto and Inter in last place -4, right? So you take away that, and tactically in the games, we are not good.
Atlanta did lose 6-1 to Columbus, and they tied New York and Chicago too. So.
Yeah, so that obviously is an anomaly, that huge loss that we lost with all their players, and it's clouding our goal differential. So that's something to keep in mind. But okay, so going forward, all right, of the 28 goals going into this game, 17 of them, of the 28 goals going into this weekend, Almada had a major role in.
I believe that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, right? Mm-hmm. So we are relying heavily on 2 things. One thing that really stands out from the analysis, just factually, before we even go into what I think might be going right or wrong, right? We are relying heavily on free kicks, and we are relying heavily on Almada, right? And free kicks, you got to say, that's not going to go away. We've got an amazing free kick team, except maybe if we lose Almada. If we lose Almada, we lose the 25-yard free kicks, and we lose his 17 goal contributions. This team has no chance if Almada leaves. It's going into the tank, right? Because we're barely hanging on just above what we're doing with that, right?
So we have an opportunity to get another DP right now, right?
Yes.
Where are we looking? We talked about this before.
Well, so one of the things I'll say is that to me, and maybe we'll go into it later, but if you do an analysis of our current team versus our MLS champion team, one of the things that pops out of that dramatically is the major difference between the championship side and this side is in the center of the park.
Yeah.
That's what. Other than that, we actually look really good,
and I think
we match up maybe even better.
Greg Garza alluded to that too when we talked to him earlier in the year. I think a little bit around Remedi and Nagby. I think he Lorenowitz. Like he was definitely giving a nod to Almiron. Like that core was pretty rock solid.
But what I would say is, if you think about also our left-footed problem, where we have 3 left-footed wingers, we had Etienne, Araujo, and Wiley, right? So you got rid of one of them. So, and obviously, I think Lennon moving to the right wing is an obvious solution. I would not buy a like-for-like winger as a designated player. I would not buy a striker. Gigi is the best, and what are you going to buy a striker to sit on the bench? Yeah. I would buy a center midfielder, a box-to-box creative guy. The best player in the world for our side right now would be Kevin De Bruyne. Obviously, we're not getting Kevin De Bruyne, but we want a designated player, Kevin De Bruyne.
For the MLS.
Yes, for the MLS.
Where do you find that guy? You got to go to Europe, South America. What's the most likely?
You could get, I'm not usually in favor of bringing in an older European guy.
Yeah,
but
that's
where
my head's
for
going.
example, Dennis Eriksson for Man United. I'm not saying he's going to leave Man United this year, but he probably only got 1 more year left in Europe. If he came a year from now, that kind of a player would be terrific in this side. A guy who just bridges a Sejdic upgrade.
Right.
I think South America would be good to find somebody personally.
Yeah, we certainly have been getting a lot of good players from there.
Have we gotten anyone from Europe? Has Man United done one of those older European?
Well, Giacomakis.
Oh, I think I was thinking more
Greek.
like
But why does South America matter anymore? Because we don't have a Tata who can attract young players anymore to be like, oh, I'm going to be coached by Tata. I don't know what the allure is other than, we obviously have a little.
But I don't think that was ever it. I think the allure was you can buy really good players on the cheap. So a lot of the European players are really, they're overpriced, right? So the South American players, because it's not as visible, those leagues, you can get players for cheaper.
Yeah.
So you can get a much better player. You can get an Almada. You can get an Almiron, right? Who are obviously quality.
But it seems like we could find like one of these, like you said, that even somebody who's at the lower end of the table in Premier League, right? For example, that might be on his last year or two, like you mentioned with.
I mean, an example of this in the MLF is a player like Shaqiri, right? Who I think is not good enough for Chicago. I think actually for Chicago, he's an awful player. Because he's a player like that is a luxury player at this point. Shaqiri, once upon a time, could really battle, could probably go up and down, make a tackle, whatever. He's not that player anymore. Right. But he's still creative on the ball and is really good. And if you put him in a team that does everything else well, surrounded with a really good team, he could be really good for a year or two.
Yeah.
That kind of player.
I'm
not a huge fan of Shaqiri, but
what else do you have in your notebook there?
Okay. So let's go to just a couple more facts just to round it out. So penalty kicks, we have converted 1 and missed 1. We have 3 against. So, I mean, the reason why I bring that up is that, we've only created 2 penalty kicks. You might have thought with the players we have dribbling, the Almadas and Araujos and Etiennes and Wileys, that we might have a little more.
Yeah.
Right. We're not getting close to that. So that's just something I should note in. But anyway, okay. Let's go to the things that we're talking about a lot. Pinching in airplanes, right? These are things that we've talked a lot about. So pinching in being the outside backs, really coming close to the 2 center backs, right? And leaving the outside forwards pretty wide open. And airplanes where we have both of our outside backs bombing up the sides and really crowding the space. And one thing that we talked about is that we thought, just based on, I went through game by game, airplanes versus no airplanes. We did this a couple weeks ago. And what we said, to my surprise, I thought what we were going to find is that the airplanes were giving up goals. That really wasn't the case. What was actually happening, if you went through that analysis, is when we had airplanes, we were scoring fewer goals. Right. So then I actually this time now went through all the goals that we scored and said, all right, do we think the airplanes had an effect? Do we to the goals that we scored? And do we think that pinching in had a negative effect? Okay. So I think that there were 5 goals that were directly contributed by the fact that we were pinching in.
Okay.
And an additional 3 goals where I thought there was maybe a slight contribution. Okay. So I think, and I'll go through it in a minute, what I think all the net means, but that's a good 5 to 8 goals that we maybe could have eliminated. Obviously, we're not going to eliminate them all, but that's a possibility of eliminating if we were to just get rid of the fact that our outside backs are pinching in too far.
Right.
Okay. So let's talk about the airplane effect on goals. So this gets really, really subjective. Not in terms, I think it's very clear when we have airplanes, but it gets subjective as to saying, what is that causing an effect, right? Yeah. So I counted 6 goals where I thought that not having the airplane seemed to really open it up for one of our outside guys in the front. Now, that is incredibly a subjective thing to say because you're like, he could have been open with the airplane, but where we really got it open down the sides, there were 6 goals that were like that. And I also felt that there were 4 instances where having airplanes seemed to affect us defensively, where our guys were up, they played in behind the airplanes, and that led directly to a goal. Okay. So that's, again, being very liberal. It's somewhere 6 to 10 goals, the possibility that the airplanes are sort of hurting us. But I also wanted to see were there cases where we really overloaded it and I felt like the airplanes contributed to a goal. There were 2 very obvious cases where we got a really good cross that led to a goal that came from an airplane.
And everybody was pressed up.
Right. And so, again, that's, potentially -10 + 2. Okay. So let's talk about it overall. Yeah. These 2 tactical things that I think that we are doing wrong, with the caveat that these are, sort of subjective, right? So I think overall for the airplanes, we had, some negative, some positive, and I think overall probably at least -2, right? That's not huge, but it's probably at least 2 goals. If you add in the 6 times, which are very subjective, that it seems to really help us not having the airplanes, it could be as much as +8. Now, I don't think it's really a +8, but okay. And then with pinching in, there were 8 instances where pinching in really cost us. That could be as many as 16.
Right.
I also noted 2 cases where we were blatantly gave them an outlet where we weren't really marking anybody. Our center backs were just dropping off and letting them play. So there were 2 cases like that. So altogether, you take all that together, that could be as many as 18 goals. Okay.
I have a question, Dave.
Yeah.
How many goals would we have scored if Miguel Berry got no minutes and we had somebody else on the field? Because we're all, no, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, keep going. All right. So obviously we're not going to get 18 from that. Nobody is possibly saying that all those examples or whatever. And for example, I think that, for example, you also, if you talk about the negative, you have to say, well, did the pinching in help? Right. So we have only conceded 2 goals up the middle all season. Period.
Really?
Right. 2. Every single goal that we're conceding is out wide. So that's very clear.
That's the insight right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
To me, that's the big insight.
So it is possible that the pinching in is blocking goals from being conceded up the middle, or it is possible that the pinching in is giving them goals out wide, or it's possible both.
It is so clear that we are at this level giving easy crosses, and by being pinched in, it's screwing up the assignments because there's too many people in there and no accountability on who the obvious guy is.
Right. I agree. So I also noted that there was only 1 single goal that we have conceded where a defender got dribbled by, right? 1 in the whole season. And there were 2 additional goals that we gave up where defender was one-on-one.
Was that the Nashville game where that guy went bombing through the center?
No, it was out wide. I think he went around Lennon.
I don't know. There was that Nashville guy where actually
I have
Miles
to go back and look.
Miles actually I was shocked, got beaten a foot race with that guy from Nashville.
Oh, that was a foot race, but I'm talking about dribbling by them.
Okay.
Okay, and then we had 2 where the defender was trying to block a shot and failed to block the shot. But my point in saying all that is it's not like I think our defenders really need that much help. They're not getting beat off the dribble. They're not really getting beaten even for shots off the dribble. That's not how we're giving up goals. Okay, so in any case, I think that if we never played airplanes and we never pinched in, I think that we could get +6.
Yeah.
I think it is possible we could get as many as +8 or +10 even, but I think it's pretty safe to say, even with the positive effects that we're having, we're probably down 6 goals because of that.
Yeah. And all jokes aside too, if we did some things that were more creative up front, when Giacomakis wasn't there, right? I think easily that's a reasonable, with, like I said, I believe in Wolf. I feel like he can find the back of the net with a little bit more wise minutes. Chol, I like the way that he's aggressive. Like as soon as he's on the field, you start mentioning his name. He may not do all the things I want correctly, but I think he's a positive player.
Well, one of the things I was saying is with doing those things, one of the things we could actually do is succeed in press. Do you know how many goals that we have scored off of turning them over in their own half, which I say is the classic way that most goals are scored. How many goals have we scored this season?
Not a lot, because we've had so many set pieces. We've had, from free kicks and from corners.
Yep.
Crosses, all of that.
7. That's my guess.
7.
Tyson says 7. Carmen?
I'm going to go lower than that.
I'm going to go 5.
4.
The answer is 2.
Okay.
Oh,
It's pretty sad for supposedly a pressing team. We have only gotten a goal off of a turnover up the field twice. And so I think that if we had players not pinched in, if we had it a little better marked up, if we didn't have airplanes bombing up the field, we could actually have a much, much stronger press, and we probably could get some of those chances that you were just talking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now Carmen.
uh-oh. Okay, I'm ready.
With all of that being said, if we were to simply fix those tactics, not even adding on the positive side, I think we would be probably at least +6.
Okay.
If you add +6 to our goal differential, you get +10.
Okay.
So let's go back to the table.
Let's go back to
Where
the
does
table.
plus table put us in the conference?
+10. We're ticking up. We're
First or second.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nashville's at +12. So that's my point.
Yeah.
My point is that I think that the silly tactics that we have is costing us 6, maybe 8 goals. And I think with a better coach, this team should be first and second with a +10 goal differential instead of a +4.
Seems fair.
I'm not talking about it's not making us into
World beaters. Yeah. The obvious number one, team that you would have thought we would have been with Almada and Araujo, being what we're paying them, and Giacomakis, who's obviously a pleasant surprise as well. So
because we're doing some things that it doesn't matter anything tactically. We're scoring we're 11 free kicks we've scored off of.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's not team tactics. I mean, with the exception that we're getting, free kick and or a corner kick, but everybody gets that. We're not getting more than other people. We're just scoring more.